If you're on this channel, chances are you're a fan of and are passionate about the fragrance and perfumery industry. I know I am. That's why I feel like it's necessary to talk about the truth. The truth is, all of our favorite fragrances are getting reformulated and they're charging you the exact same price for weaker products. Take for instance, the men's and women's version of Black XS. These older formulations are vastly superior to the tepid, weak, newer versions. Now, a lot of these companies, like Paco Rabanne for example, are going to tell you that some of the ingredients have been found to be toxic and they've got to reformulate them for legal reasons. BS. Complete BS. Sure, that's happened before. For instance, with oak moss, for example, you're only legally allowed to use a certain amount depending on your perfume, and obviously you're going to play it safe because you don't want to poison people, basically. A good example of a fragrance that used oak moss and then had to reformulate is Drakkar Noir. The original formulation of Drakkar Noir is vastly superior to the newer formulation. The more recent reformulation of Drakkar Noir is still a great fragrance, it still smells good, but just go online and read about everyone's experience with this in the late 80s and the 90s, and they'll tell you that the newer formulation and the older formulation are two completely different beasts. The same can be said for YSL's Kouros. I mean, this is still a potent fragrance, but if you have ever smelt the old formulation, the new formulation doesn't even come close to it in terms of potency. All of these fragrances that we've grown up with and that we love are getting changed constantly. In the vast majority of cases, none of these fragrance houses are letting anyone know they're changing anything. But they still have the goal, the sheer goal, to charge the same price for them. Why should we have to pay $100 for a fragrance? For instance, let's just say we want to buy Paco Rabanne's Black XS at retail price. Why should we have to pay $100 for that fragrance when we know for a fact that it is significantly weaker than it used to be? Doesn't it make sense that, given that it's a weaker fragrance, they should be charging less for it? I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I think that's kind of wrong, don't you? Another example of quite a recent reformulation is Versace Eros. Thankfully, I've got an older batch here, and it is night and day in comparison to one of the newer batches. Like, the smell is roughly in the same ballpark, but in terms of the potency and how long it lasts on your skin, we're talking quite a few hours here. Any wonder massive fragrance houses are losing business and losing sales because companies like Nike are coming in using the same DNA of these fragrances and then charging significantly less. $120 in Australia, $9 in Australia, and the two smell identical on your skin. Why should we, the customers, be forced to pay the exact same price for weaker, inferior products? Just coming out and saying that some ingredient has been illegal simply isn't enough. I'm tired of it. I know everyone else in this community has experienced this as well. It's time we all made our voices heard and let these people know, let these people in charge know that, we're tired of it. We're done paying premiums for weaker, inferior products. As an Australian, I feel like one of our defining characteristics is fairness. We appreciate and respect fairness above all else. We're the first people to point out when something isn't fair, and in this case, I'm more than happy to point out that it is unfair when a fragrance house reformulates a fragrance and then still charges the exact same price for it. Some people will say that my argument is silly because smelling good and using these fragrances, these expensive fragrances, is a privilege. But is it really? Is it really a privilege to smell good? I believe that if you're paying for a product, you should get what you pay for. And if I'm paying $120 for a bottle of Black XS, for instance, I mean, your chances are you can find it a little cheaper than that on discount, but if you're paying that top dollar for a product, you should get what you are paying for and not an inferior version of that product. My name is Aussie Marcel, and I'm sick of the way the fragrance industry is treating its customers. Thanks for watching the video.